distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to repeal the Electoral Act number 13 of 2022 and to enact the Electoral Bill 2026 to regulate the conduct of federal and state elections and also area council elections in the Federal Capital Territory and for related matters 2026 third reading taken and passed. The conference committee, because definitely I'm sure some of the provisions that we have elicited today will be different from what our colleagues passed and adjourned last week in the House of Representatives. This Senate, under my watch, has not rejected electronic transmission of results. It's in my interest as a participant in the next election for such to be done. So please don't go with the crowd. Don't go with the crowd. We have retained what was in the previous provision. That's all we did. So if we rejected what was proposed by way of amendment and said let's retain what was in the previous provision, the previous provision had made allowance, had made provision for electronic transmission. So it is still there as part of our laws. And I think we should be moving forward, not moving backwards. There is no way we can, in this era of electronics, will now be going backwards.
Welcome back. So, after all is said and done, the Senate has passed the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2026, but lawmakers rejected a key provision that would have made real-time electronic transmission of results mandatory, opting instead to leave the process to INEC's discretion. While supporters call it flexibility, critics see it as a dangerous loophole that threatens transparency and public trust in elections. Well, joining us to weigh in on this matter, Peter Ameh, General Secretary of the Coalition of United Political Parties. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning for having me.
Well, there's some, well, I was not surprised anyway, in the first instance, but I imagine that you and a lot of the other people may not have been, because we seem to have been on this path before. When all this dilly-dallying was going on with the Senate, when the Senate committee chair on INEC and these reforms was not available, some thought this might just be a pointer to what to expect. So, with this now, what's your reaction to it?
It is, I don't know what we use. It's embarrassing to see that the Nigerian Senate has developed this skin to the request of the electorate and the Nigerian people. And they're acting in an authoritarian manner to decide that they were going to stand with the provision of the Electoral Act 2022. And in that process, they have made this Amendment Act an ritual that has been stripped of any meaningful force, any meaningful reasoning, you know, because the betrayal of trust between with the action of the Senate yesterday really will go a long way in undermining the democratic progress that we have made over the years. They are not afraid of technology. They are just afraid of transparency. That's what they are doing. They are afraid of. The time when the report of the Electoral Act was presented by the chairman of the committee, Senator Lalong, you discover that he didn't even attend. He was not there. You know, it was a deliberate tactics to be able to, ambush Nigerians with this their own provision, because the provision that was, brought in Section 60, subsection 5, to, now cover for mandatory transmission of the result that have now been, rejected, and they are clinging to the provision of the 2022 Electoral Act that says that the transmission will be at the discretion of the Electoral Commission. The Supreme Court has clearly stated, because the Electoral Commission went further in line with that provision of 2022 to make recommendations and the manner at which this will be transmitted in the regulation and guidelines for conduct of election 2022 by the Commission. Yes, the Commission has the power to make judicial quasi-authorities, but this judicial quasi-authority cannot be superior to the Electoral Act or to the Constitution of Nigeria. So that's what the Supreme Court said. And in the process of trying to do that, people gathered, young people, advocate for good governance and election in Nigeria, made provisions, contributed to some of these debates, and the Senate made a lot of promise that they were going to, look at these provisions and then passed it. But what the Senate did yesterday is to spit on the face of all Nigerians and tell them, look, we believe we need to keep the place open so that we will go back to the vulnerabilities that have undermined the Code of Elections in Nigeria, where, INEC can be coerced, INEC can be forced, or under discretionary measures, INEC can decide to do something that will not represent the interest of the electorate at the polls. Because it is clear that we have an RF portal that have actually likely show some level of transparency. Because if you look at, investigation from the past, in the haste they upload, to the IRF, and when people conduct investigation from the IRF portal and then juxtapose it with the from ECAT that have been presented to them at the polling, they discover the election has been rigged. So because of that now, they are putting safeguard to protect the elitist interest in governance, not to make sure that the Nigerian people go to the polls and through the process, elect candidates that will represent their interest or that favors the interest of the masses.
In other words, I mean, from how you feel, it does come across as though you're aligned with several critics who think, look, whatever the Senate things they've done, they just wasted people's time. You should have just stuck with the Electoral Act 2022.
All the other provisions are not, they does not carry any meaningful force. Those are just entertainment. The only provision that really matter is the section 60, subsection 5, that could have really given the necessary transparent environment and corridor for the conduct of our elections. I think people should be ready, because if you have 179,000 polling units, they can't operate in just some of these units where security agencies are not able to protect the lives of our people today. They are going to put ballot boxes in those places, but they are going to come up with results eventually. But what the people must do is to know that the survival of democracy is not just only by the force of law. It's also by citizens' interest to participate, with very strong determination to make sure that the election result reflects its outcome. Because democracy has never survived anywhere in the world just by provisions of the law. It has survived by citizen engagement in the process. Participation of citizens is very key.
Yeah, but it appears that is what we're looking at here. I mean, the fact that we're trying to legislate everything. Because some people would say that ideally this flexibility that has been retained, which was in 2022 Act, should not, give concern. But for the fact that INEC broke trust, I can't find any other word to use it, broke trust in the 2023 elections. I imagine, I do not know, but I do not know if you share the sentiment that some people say if INEC had kept its word in the 2022 elections, perhaps it wouldn't be such a big deal that the Senate refused to, change the laws to be strict on electronic transmission.
If you look at the surveys and this thing that have been carried out since post-2023 election, you know that the trust deficit between the citizens and the Electoral Commission has widened on a serious scale. So because of that lack of trust, and because Nigerians have actually focused their attention that this should be that technology will help to enhance transparency in electoral processes, and that we have all collectively agreed with all the work that has been put in, and then you just found out that the Senate, threw away the baby with the bathwater and every other thing.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is this safe? Is it safe for us to actually tie the hands? Because some people say what we're essentially doing by insisting and mandating, or saying that INEC should transmit electronically, we're literally tying the hands of the electoral umpire, that if it doesn't do so, then maybe the result for that particular polling station or for that particular area might be declared invalid.
If you look at the way our electoral system works, we have dual transmission process, we have dual collation process. Yeah. When we have dual collation process, in the sense that you still have from ECAT that you are not throwing away that paper.
Which is the hard copy.
The hard copy that is uploaded to the IRF. Yeah. IRF is a result viewing portal. There's no complication. There's nothing. These people are just they are interested in sustaining themselves in power, and also continue to sustain their family in power. It is not about the interest of the people. It's not difficult. We have a dual process. It is clear. Even when you come for accreditation, there's a dual process. You write your name on the paper. They check your picture. You still thumbprint on the system, the beavers. You see thumbprint on the beavers, and your picture comes out. And these are double verification process. These are the safeguard in our electoral system that are added as a guardrail for protection of the mandate of people. We are looking at people who wants to get elected, just getting mandate with a legitimacy. That's what we're seeing, nothing else. They don't care whether the people support them. They don't care whether the people believe in them. If not, if I've worked for 4 years, if I've delivered to the people, just like people come to do documentaries, it will be self-promoted by the citizens. People will support you. You don't have to force a system into becoming and working as a shadow for your own protection. So we have a challenge. We are not talking now. We agree. They also agree. The Supreme Court has agreed that this cannot stand, that you need to put this law in the Electoral Act that is superior to any legislation made by the Commission. So that guidelines cannot work today, because even when you say we are going to continue with those provisions of 2022 that have brought all the vulnerabilities that we see, that have brought the fact that INEC went ahead to announce results, even those results that are in IRF in Rivers State does not reflect the one that are from ECHA, another state in Lagos, including Kogi. So this is a big challenge. We needed to save it. We needed to build trust, because voter apathy. The president today was elected by less than 10% of the vote of the registered voters. Which country does that? So we need to be able to, create interest where young people, where new new voters will come on board and believe that the system is strong enough to protect their vote, and their vote will count at the end of the day.
Also, clearly, what they are trying to protect is in all that value chain, election value chain. One of the critical part is the collation, where overnight you say, "Well, journalists, we work there overnight," and then before you know what's happening, tell you, "Well, come back the next morning." So they disappear in the middle of the night, and then come back the next morning, you see things have changed. So that is the main part where they don't want anything happening, because if they make that part as smooth, as transparent, many of them will not be returning.
That's the truth. The truth is that they want to retain the criminal collation center. Let me tell you, if not because the people and those who were elected in Abia State stood up and decided to defend their mandate, the result was being changed. Just like it was changed in Abia in 2019.
She stood her ground.
She stood her ground. The only way people who have been given responsibility to conduct election transparently can stand their ground if they see the people standing with them. If the people were not standing, if the winner of that election, the Governor and his people were not vigilant enough, let me tell you, the woman would have caved. That's the problem of our elections. A lot of people want to stand. Look at Kano in 2015. What happened between the Resident Electoral Commissioner and the administrative sect? So the challenge is that the people must engage.
No, many of them don't want to stand.
And the collation center is where they are protecting. That's where the fraud happens. Because when you come to the collation center, they will bring soldiers, they will bring police, and tell you to go out. I've witnessed it. And then tell you to go out. No politicians are allowed. But they have their own men inside that is rewriting the results. That is the problem. With this, we will now do away with the collation center, with what is happening in South Africa. And people will ask you, "Oh, where is it done?" It's done in a lot of places. Technology is virtually helping to define electoral system in every world, in every part of the country.
I still have a problem, and that's because I know, like, I've seen my country. I've been privileged to witness elections in other countries. It's not, in fact, when you speak with Samson, he will tell you that there are places where they are still conducting elections with pebbles.
Yes, of course.
Where with map, and there is no problem. It is easy. People trust the system.
I agree.
In Nigeria, it would seem that with every layer of authentication we add, the trust just falls apart, because we always find a way to, either the umpire finds a way to break trust of the people, or the politicians are adept at undermining the system. And I believe that, not even if this electronic, there's a book I used to read when I was younger. It says not even the gods are wise enough to catch a woman in love. That's the situation of Nigeria. It would seem that even no matter what it is you add, the politicians will find a way. While I'm not, siding the Senate, and I believe that certainly whatever criticism is coming to them is very well deserved, because people have seen that clearly, the system cannot be trusted. The flexibility or the discretion, the level of discretion given to INEC has failed in the past, and they're looking for safeguards. However, people are also still saying that to put everything in the law and make it straight-jacketed, to say this is the only way, or you must do it like this, will also put the umpire in very perilous circumstances, because these same politicians are the ones that will find ways to tie the hands of the umpire. You don't agree that they can make nonsense of the situation where this to be firmed up and say one of the ways, if this is not electronically transmitted, then maybe it will make nonsense of the entire process?
I agree with you that there's no trust in our electoral system, and it's because of this trust has been broken. The 5 week has been broken because of a lot of issues. But if you look at the improvement in our electoral management system, it's becoming fair. You can no longer declare 60 million votes, 10 million votes for one person, 30 million votes. You can see that people are struggling to get 8 million votes. So the same level of safeguard that have been put in this electoral architectural framework is actually working. And for every country, you could go to a British community now and then shout on a British man, he looks at you, he won't going to reply. It's not his culture. Our own system, style, we're different, we're differently built.
We're very aggressive.
We're very aggressive. And because of the many years of governance failure, people are frustrated, there's no provision, there's no electricity, no water. People are frustrated. So they take up their frustration against their fellow.
No, but is that really justified?
But
let me interrupt you there. Sorry, Mr. Ameh, let me interrupt you. Look, that's 2 years ago, or how many years ago, I was privileged to witness elections in Liberia. This is a country that has been through war. They understand aggression. They understand violence. They've seen it firsthand. And yet, when they conducted their elections, it was so peaceful. The people there were the ones who stood in the front guard to say, look, we want peace. And whatever wranglings the politicians have, whatever it is you do, peace must be maintained in this election.
I think I would say, I don't want peace.
Yes, you've heard that. I want violence always. That is what we have. You know, in Nigeria, you will find politicians who will go and instigate the people, even where there is nothing to be instigated. We witnessed collation overnight, Chamberlain. There was no political party presence there. People just trusted that the system will deliver what it says it will deliver. Why is it that in our country, so we cannot say, oh, it's because there's no light, oh, there's no this. That cannot be the reason why are we witnessed what the people in Liberia have witnessed?
Because they have witnessed that, maybe they come to their senses. And you could say that Nigerian citizens are what they call misplaced power, anger. If the anger is not well directed, it's also affecting them because they are supposed to channel this anger in trying to make sure that they protect their own mandate. But in all, the challenge we have with our democratic culture is not because our people are not even strong enough. They also show in 2023 that they can also struggle for that. But that system was broken, like you say, and the trust is widened. What the Senate knows, what the Senate is doing. You said that these laws cannot really help. But let me tell you something. What the Senate is doing, if the Senate knows that this law, this provision, section 60, subsection 5, could be manipulated, they will just put it for us. Because of digital footprint and a lot of issues. Even when they say there was glitches, they couldn't explain. They are still, struggling to be able to explain that into both international community and to local observers and advocate for credible elections. So they are trying to avoid any system that will further tighten the news against their form of criminal hijack of electoral process.
Talk about this, because ordinarily, since we know from EC8A, that's a hard copy. So all you need to do is just upload and make a real-time transmission.
Nothing else. It's not a difficult.
Now, if we had that copy, why is it then that we bother so much about saying, well, collation is still going to be a problem? Because according to the law, all parties who participated, I think through their agents, they have to sign, and then they're all there to say, this form that we receive is the real results. But we still have a problem with that. In spite of that, all those safeguards, so to speak, we still think, oh no, it still doesn't work.
I can tell you the reason why we have problem. Because if you have 179,000 from EC8A as from your party agent, and you've collated that result, and then people go to collation center and rewrite those results or mutilate them and do whatever they want to do to the result to change the figures there. What option do you have?
So
you go to court.
That's where I'm coming. If 5 agents have the same result, and then one person, whoever changes there, has a different result,
that was what people said before. That if you watch Okoye, some of the times he appeared on your TV when he was commissioner before, he said when there's a discrepancy between uploaded result and the from EC8A, that the one uploaded will take precedence over the one that is that has been manipulated. So that's what he said on this station. I watched it. So but the issue is that when you take these results, there are processes for litigation, electoral tribunal. They say you will control this thing. You have to rely on INEC to provide the certified true.
So it means we're also deliberately putting those measures to frustrate the process.
Court, that's why people are telling you they don't want to go to court after the election. People are telling you that they have lost confidence. The whole system, the whole gamut of our electoral management structure, whether from the judiciary to the lawmaking process and to the electoral umpire, is having a lot of problem. So if we had a post-election litigation transparent process for it, people will go to court and then seek redress. Look at Ghana. When the election was being conducted, it was the vice president who saw from the result collated by his agent. I witnessed when he said it, I was in the hall. Result that he called the opposition, John Mahama today, that they have won. So these are not, it's not rocket science. It's just that these people want a process where they will have a loophole to entrench themselves in power. And you can see that entrenchment is leading to them transferring power to their children. Politics is lucrative. That's why even those who are staying outside the APC, it's just sacrifice because everybody wants to be there because it's a lucrative thing. You see people driving, people who have been in power, in government since 1999. They're riding they're driving on Rolls Royce. They're flying private jets, even those who are comrades. So these are the challenge of our democratic. Young people also want to get to power, to be able to make money. Because the people who are there today are not living the culture of economic prosperity, of infrastructural revolution that we look at. See, people are genuinely interested in investing in the future of our children.
Well, as it is now, this is where we are. The Senate has rejected this, or will I say, yeah, rejected that electronic transmission. They say they've retained what was in the 2022 electoral, which is, giving flexibility and discretion to INEC. So if we now know that this is where it is with INEC, you have the discretion. What do you think? What amount of pressure do you think we need to be putting on INEC now to because some people will say that we cannot leave INEC out of this. We cannot just excuse them. Yes, they misbehaved in 2023. That was gross misconduct, by the definition of many Nigerians. But clearly, 2027 has got to be different. What do you think we can do to hold the feet of INEC to the fire that what happened in 2023 would not be acceptable?
The opposition, the opposition must be more active.
No, not just the opposition, the Nigerian.
No, we are going. We have to cascade this. Yes, okay. The opposition must also be very active. They must go beyond this rhetoric of press releases, because those who were organizing press protests and all that, putting pressure on government, are in power today, and they are not going to come from power to try to help you to organize pressure, against their own government. So that's why they are so relaxed. They could travel out, spend 23 days, and come back. And as you do, you talk about it on TV, and it's gone. When you talk about protest, in social study, they tell you how some part of the instrument you could use to be able to make government pressure group and all the rest of it. It's not a crime. As long as it's peaceful. So people, I don't know why people want to run away from that. And two, the citizens themselves must understand that what is on the line is the lack of progress that Nigeria is not making, and if we are making progress at all, we are making that progress in error. So that error affects their own life and also transfer to their own children, because we live in this whole ecosystem, Nigeria. If you don't have any development because there's bad governance and because the electoral system does not allow good people to come in, then we are going to be having the continuous decay that we see both in infrastructure and economic life of our people.
Maybe this fits into that error you speak about, because in 2023 elections, we spent 313.4 billion naira to conduct that election, and they will spend more for these coming elections. So we keep spending more, but we're getting worse, well, not the results that we require. And, in the real sense of the word, I don't even think INEC has any sort of discretion. Because what can they do? They can't do what the law didn't provide for them to do, which is what Nigerians want. But what should the message now be for probably opposition? Should they change their messaging to the people? Say, look, once you vote, you have to find a way to ensure that the collation center is not manipulated.
Every political party that is contesting the election, if you don't have capacity to provide agents, 179,000 areas, then
that's a lot.
Don't participate.
What?
There's no need, because you have to have agent to have from CHA, and if you are having the agent, you must also have your stakeholders.
Depending on the election you're vying for, anyway.
The vice president, the president. I'm talking about the presidential election, which is what almost every Nigeria is physical that right.
Which it shouldn't be in any way.
It shouldn't be, but in our federal system, there's this overbearing overreach authority of the federal power that has been used in many ways negatively. So people, that's why the concentration goes there. If somebody has come on board to try to manage this federal power in a way that that is comforting, that it can see every federating unit as an equal harm of government, then it would have been better. It's because you see that the way that it has been deployed, to make the federal government stronger and make the state weaker. So that's why the concentration is today. And even the 52%, the way the federal allocation is shared, the federal government still take a lot, and we don't know what they do with it. So the main thing now is to hold INEC responsible for any conduct of election that will come. And political parties are largely responsible also because they are the primary critical stakeholder in the election process. Every other person comes as secondary, whether you are advocate, whether you are whatever you do, you come as secondary. The political party is number one. And today when you have political parties that cannot speak against a law that has been brought out to affect their interest, then there's a challenge, because every angle of Nigerian democracy has been strangulated, because the political party have something hanging on their neck. I'm telling you, you go to press conference, you find out that the registration has happened because Section 225A. So you can find out, you see that there's no more political parties speaking against INEC.
Oh dear.
You can, very few, those who have won election will speak against INEC. But if you have not won election, you come and speak here. You might not attend the consultative meeting that will happen on
One does never cease. On a lighter note, I mean, these same security agencies that perform very well in chasing people away from collation centers, they are invisible when bandits attack terrorists attack different groups. But at those centers, you see them very sharp and active, like their life depends on it. But I guess maybe the messaging has to change for all those who vote, who watch, to ensure that even if you have to run shifts to watch those collation centers, you may have to resort to that. So make sure that if you think you can eat your cake and have it, lawmakers, you have to think again. Ms. Ameh, thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
We will be back in a moment. Don't go away.